Lord have mercy, I'm about to bust.
I'm not even gonna lie, depending on how these movies turn out, July 2025 might be one of the best months for comic book movies in a long time. Superman and the Fantastic Four First Steps releasing within 2 weeks of each other is a really interesting combo, when taking into account the precedent they have to set for their respective franchises, coupled with how little or badly they've both been handled in media in the past decade or so. I'm hoping they can prove to audiences that this so-called superhero fatigue is just a myth, like I've been saying, and that the lack of interest in superhero movies as of late only stems from an abundance of mediocrity and these companies constantly producing slop. If you can make an appealing movie, people will pull up. It's just that simple. Superman and the Fantastic Four have enormous amounts of pressure, as a lot of people haven't been vibing with the more recent MCU movies and shows, and Warner Brothers had more misses than hits with the DCEU, to the point where they had to reboot just to regain audience attention, as every movie after Aquaman couldn't hit $400 million in the worldwide box office, minus Aquaman 2 I guess. While James Gunn announcing his reboot plans for DC certainly didn't help in the box office performance of movies like The Flash or Shazam 2, I still think those movies would have underperformed regardless, as the reputation of interconnected DC movies had been tarnished to such an extent that the general audience intrigue was already dwindling. These movies were going downhill way before James Gunn and DC Studios, which is why a reboot was necessary. It's been almost a decade since the last Fantastic Four movie and almost 12 years since the release of Man of Steel. These characters will more than likely be major components of the DCU and MCU going forward. While both upcoming movies face enormous pressure, I'd say with confidence Superman has more to prove in trying to get audiences to care about DC again. If Fantastic Four, say, flops or isn't received well by audiences, it's not like Avengers Doomsday won't make over $1 billion the year after, or that Marvel won't even bother with incorporating the X-Men or something. If that Superman movie doesn't hit, oh brother, it's wraps. Now that's not to say Fantastic Four should get away with being mediocre or downright awful. If that movie sucks, Kevin Feige, I'm coming for you. But in the meantime, I'ma hold out hope for both of these movies. Very excited to see new takes on these characters, and both teaser trailers hit just the right way for me. I might be eating good in July. This is about to be my pseudo Barbenheimer. Super fantastic, about to go crazy for Marvel and DC fans. I have not been shy about my excitement for Superman. And if that movie sucks, I am not going to be a happy camper. If Superman is trash, this whole YouTube crap is over and done with. I will be converting to OnlyFans as a side hustle. Be sure to hit me up at Freak Enterprises. The casting has been on point across the board. David Corenswet is gonna crush it as this generation's Superman. He's proven himself to be a talented actor, and you're definitely gonna need potential star power to help carry this franchise for the next 8 to 10 years. I just have one simple question in regards to some of the relationships and dynamics within the Daily Planet cast. Does Clark Kent know how to fight? I know Lois Lane is his girl and all, but with how Rachel Brosnahan be looking,
she's so fine, she done pissing me off. How are you that fine?
There are two big reasons as to why I'm really intrigued to see Rachel Brosnahan's portrayal of Lois Lane, and I think y'all know where I'm going with this. Haha. Reason number one, her role in the Amazon Prime show The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. She plays the lead, Midge Maisel, who was a rising comedian in the late 1950s, early 60s, and she did a really good job in that show. You can definitely see the Lois Lane mannerisms sprinkled in there. And reason number two being with how much James Gunn talked about prioritizing the chemistry between Lois and Clark. We might witness one of the best Clois depictions ever put to screen. I know there have been some people complaining about the look of certain heroes and the casting choices of characters like Guy Gardner, but I feel as if the aesthetic of Guy Gardner is very intentional. There's no way someone's gonna look at the guy and his wig unironically like, yeah, he looks pretty cool. Guy Gardner is a giant douche nozzle, and by just looking at that goofy Super Bowl ad, I know they're onto something. Look at this prick, thinking he's all that. Looking at that makes me hope the DCU's Batman clocks this guy in the face with zero hesitation.
You so much as sneeze without my permission, you're going to regret it.
That I'd like to see. One punch. One punch.
I swear, miserable folk will hyperfixate over anything with both Fantastic Four and Superman. Oh, let me overanalyze and moan about this 5-second clip because I have nothing else better to do with my life. While both the Fantastic Four and Superman have been disrespected in media, I'd say the Fantastic Four have had it a lot worse. At least with Superman, there's a few live action depictions people can choose from to be their favorite, whether it be TV or film, or if the story focuses more on Clark Kent or Superman. The Fantastic Four have never had a single good or accurate adaptation in live action, which is crazy to think about given how they're regarded as Marvel's first family and helped to define the Silver Age of comics. I've been waiting a very long time to see the Fantastic Four in the MCU, ever since Disney acquired the rights from 20th Century Fox. Them and the X-Men were pretty much the only reason I even stuck around with Marvel after Endgame, and from what I've seen of the movie so far based on the teaser, Marvel might have cooked up something special. Of course, you'll have your detractors who are incapable of getting excited or hopeful about anything these days, which is somewhat understandable, but half the time, any discourse is just people with way too much time on their hands trying to make a negative out of nothing. Some people take issue with the thing's design, I guess. Those people are lame as hell because this is the most comic accurate look of the thing. Some might say he looks pretty fantastic.
Say that again?
Thank God the costumes for each of the four heroes have actual vibrant colors and fully embrace the comic roots of the team. Definitely more emblematic of the John Byrne era of the Fantastic Four. You don't know how sick and tired I am of seeing these over-designed, muted colors suits that the MCU has adopted for so many years. Dodged a major bullet in not having them wear anything resembling what John Krasinski's Reed Richards wore in Multiverse of Madness. First Steps might be one of the only good showcases of the multiverse since the movie takes place in the early 1960s on a separate Earth, outside of the main MCU timeline. For a saga called the Multiverse Saga, there's been very little exploration of the different multiverse Earths to explore and how they differ from Earth 616. Only Earth we saw in Multiverse of Madness was the one where Reed Richards and the rest of the Illuminati got clapped by Wanda. If the intent was to always have the movie set in the 60s, having the team exist on an alternate Earth was definitely the right call. Trying to make a Fantastic Four movie set in the 60s that occurred in the main MCU Earth would have made no sense. There has never once been a mention or nod to a single member of the Fantastic Four in any of the entries prior to the Multiverse Saga, so this gives them the creative freedom in how the team is seen by the general public, with them being celebrities and presumably the only prominent heroes of their particular Earth. It's not a high bar to meet, but this will definitely be the best live action interpretation of the Fantastic Four, considering it seems like they're actually trying to make an effort in doing these characters justice. I guess the closest we've ever gotten was the Tim Story Fantastic Four movies. Human Torch, Mr. Fantastic, and The Thing weren't necessarily done the worst. I think the castings were pretty solid all around. However, Sue Storm, or the Invisible Woman, had the worst treatment out of anyone in those movies. Her character was not written well at all. My issues with that Sue Storm in particular have nothing to do with Jessica Alba herself. Okay, that is some premium milk right there. I don't care what Dr. Umar says. She had no memorable or in-depth characterization that made her stand out from the rest of the team other than her looks, I guess. It also doesn't help that Jessica Alba was being mistreated on set, and some of the demands from her made her almost quit acting. You got people out here thinking Sue Storm is for the streets or something, seeing a lot of misinformation on her even having a relationship with Namor. In actuality, it's less of Reed Richards having to worry about Namor trying to steal his girl. Rather, imagine Namor trying to get with Sue as being like Shamik Moore trying to get with Haley Steinfeld or Laura Harrier. These are engaged women out here, my man, just let it go.
I keep seeing all these videos with another actor and people speculating what that is. I'm literally engaged, which is fucking weird. You're a fucking weirdo. I'm sorry, you're a fucking weirdo.
Since the upcoming Fantastic Four movie is set to take place on an alternate Earth, that raises the question on the outcome of the movie's events. We know Galactus is the main threat, but there could be a possibility he ends up destroying their Earth by the end, or at least play a role in the Fantastic Four being displaced from their Earth, given that they're set to appear in Avengers Doomsday. We have no idea if Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom comes from the same universe or originates from a different universe entirely and somehow comes to the main MCU Earth to wreak havoc. He didn't have to be the main villain of the first MCU Fantastic Four movie, but it'd be weird if there wasn't at least a version of Victor Von Doom that existed and has a history with Reed Richards, because having it so that Reed Richards never comes across Victor at any point during his lifetime, or not establishing that rivalry, would be very odd to say the least. Could you imagine if the MCU X-Men movie featured Professor X and Magneto, who have no history with one another and are meeting for the first time when Xavier forms the X-Men? It'd be stupid as hell. My prediction is that by the end of the Multiverse Saga and Avengers Secret Wars, the MCU timeline will be morphed so that the Fantastic Four and X-Men are integrated into the main universe, with history altered to make it seem like they've been here the whole time. As I doubt Marvel would want to push the multiverse agenda even more after it's all said and done, given audience reception. They have the opportunity for the Fantastic Four to interact with the wider Marvel universe and even interact with Tom Holland's Spider-Man. One can only hope Superman and Fantastic Four help cement why those characters deserve to be household names, and convey the impact they've had in shaping DC and Marvel Comics to what we know it as today. I don't want to hear any more Superman slander. Oh, he's too overpowered, he's too boring, too much of a Boy Scout. Or the Fantastic Four are lame, Sue Storm is for the streets.
What? Okay, shut the fuck up!
Yes, it's acceptable to be excited for both instead of putting them against each other. Shocker, I know. Given the hype and reception to just the teaser trailers alone, it's possible these entries could prove to be really successful and put Marvel and DC back on track. It only benefits both parties as that drives competition and forces both companies to produce quality content instead of mediocre movies and shows people are getting tired of. Here's to hopefully eating good in July.